Malik could feel his heart drumming against his ribs as he stood at the front of the conference room. The air smelled faintly of fresh coffee and cold ambition, the kind that lived in polished shoes, pressed suits, and practiced smiles. His laptop hummed softly on the glass table as he clicked through his final slide rehearsal. He'd been up all night, running through his words, fixing the transitions, even rehearsing his gestures in the mirror of his small apartment. This was his chance, his big break. At 24, Malik was the youngest intern at Sterling & Company, a marketing firm known for landing billion-dollar clients. Getting this internship had been harder than anything he'd ever done. Dozens of interviews, endless networking emails, and months of self-doubt. And now, after weeks of hard work, he'd been given an opportunity to present his proposal to the executive board. Just 10 minutes, his manager had said, to show them what you've got. He glanced around the room as the senior executives filed in, men and women in dark suits, eyes fixed on their phones, their expressions blank with superiority. Malik stood a little straighter, adjusting his tie. His slide deck was sharp. Sleek visuals, data-driven insights, and a bold new social media strategy designed to attract younger audiences. He believed in it with everything he had. "All right, everyone," said Mr. Wallace, the CEO, settling into the head chair. His gray hair was slicked back, and his tone carried the weight of command. "This is Malik, correct? The intern." "Yes, sir," Malik said, forcing a smile. "Thank you for the opportunity." Wallace waved a hand. "Proceed." Malik took a deep breath and began. His voice was steady at first, though he could feel the tremor under the surface. "What I'm proposing is a shift in how we engage our younger demographic. Traditional advertising has hit a ceiling. The audience we're missing doesn't just want products, they want authenticity, community, and value alignment." He clicked to the next slide, a colorful layout showing trends, engagement graphs, and consumer behavior data. "By integrating influencer partnerships with micro-content storytelling, we can boost engagement by up to..." A cough interrupted him. One of the board members, a middle-aged man with a red tie, leaned back in his chair. "Influencers," he said with a smirk. "You mean paying kids on the internet to dance with our products?" A few chuckles rippled across the room. Malik hesitated, then tried to recover. "Not exactly. These aren't just kids. They're micro-brand leaders. Their trust factor within their communities is higher than any ad placement." "Communities," another woman said, her tone laced with sarcasm. "You mean followers." Laughter again. Malik's throat went dry. He looked at his slides, bright, hopeful colors suddenly seeming childish in the harsh fluorescent light. Still, he pushed through. "If we can adapt now, we can capture a market that will define the next decade. I've run projections, and the ROI potential is..." "Enough." The CEO's voice sliced through the air. He leaned forward, eyes sharp and dismissive. "This company has built its reputation on tradition and discipline. We're not interested in chasing viral trends or whatever this is." Malik's stomach dropped. "Sir, with all due respect, it's not just a trend. It's the future of consumer connection. The data, Wallace interrupted, is irrelevant if it undermines our brand integrity." He closed his notebook with a sharp clap. "You're young, and I understand enthusiasm. But perhaps next time, you'll focus on ideas that reflect our values, not those of TikTok." A low murmur filled the room. Malik stood frozen, the hum of the projector suddenly deafening. He wanted to argue, to defend his vision, but every instinct told him that wouldn't end well. He could feel their eyes on him, weighing him, dismissing him. "Mr. Wallace turned to Malik's supervisor. "Please escort him out. We'll conclude this meeting with the senior team." "Sir," Malik asked quietly, barely believing what he was hearing. Wallace didn't look at him. "We appreciate your enthusiasm, but we won't be needing your services any longer." It hit him like a punch. Around the table, no one said a word. Some avoided his eyes, others smirked faintly. His supervisor sighed, placed a hand on his shoulder, and whispered, "Let's go, Malik." He gathered his laptop slowly, hands trembling. The slides still glowed on the screen. "Reinventing engagement. The future starts now." The irony stung. As he walked toward the door, Malik turned for one last look at the room. The board members were already chatting again, as if he'd never been there. As if his ideas, His passion, his time, all of it, meant nothing. The glass doors closed behind him with a soft hiss. He didn't realize until he stepped outside that he'd been holding his breath. The winter air hit his face, sharp and cold, but it felt cleaner than the suffocating air of that boardroom. He adjusted his bag, took one deep breath, and whispered to himself, "One day, they'll listen." He didn't yet know how true that would be. 2 years later, the glass doors of Sterling and Company slid open with a quiet hiss, and Malik stepped through, this time not in a borrowed suit, not clutching a presentation in trembling hands, but with a calm assurance that came from owning the ground he walked on. The reception area looked the same. Sterile white walls, chrome fixtures, and a massive silver logo that seemed to glint with arrogance. But something had shifted, or maybe it was just Malik who had. He paused for a moment, taking it in. The scent of espresso and printer toner filled the air, the same as the day he was escorted out. He almost smiled. Back then, he'd walked out with his heart in pieces, unsure of his worth, certain he'd blown his one chance. Now he returned as the man who owned everything behind those doors. The receptionist, a young woman with neat curls and wide, startled eyes, looked up from her desk. For a second, she didn't recognize him. Then she blinked, her hand freezing over the keyboard. "Mr. Johnson," she asked carefully. "That's right," Malik said, his voice even. "I have a meeting with the executive board." Her eyes flickered to the digital screen in front of her, where his name was listed not as a guest, but as owner, Johnson Holdings. Her lips parted in surprise. "One moment, sir. I'll let them know you're here." As she made the call, Malik's gaze drifted to the framed photographs lining the hallway, the company's wall of legacy. He remembered them all. Mr. Wallace's smug smile in the center. The same man who had laughed at him, cut him off mid-sentence, and tossed his dreams aside like trash. Malik's jaw tightened, but he forced himself to exhale slowly. He hadn't come back for vengeance. He'd come to build something better, though a small part of him relished the idea of seeing their faces when they realized who now held the power. 2 years of relentless work had brought him here. After leaving Sterling and Company, Malik refused to quit. He freelanced, networked, and pitched his marketing strategy to small businesses that believed in his vision. His model worked, not in boardrooms full of cynics, but in the hands of entrepreneurs hungry for growth. Word spread, investors came, and within a year, his startup, Connective Media, exploded in popularity. By the time Sterling and Company began losing clients to Malik's firm, it was already too late. Their methods were outdated, their leadership disconnected. When the company hit a financial wall, Malik saw the headline and made a decision within an hour. Through a quiet acquisition and a series of discreet negotiations, Johnson Holdings took control. On paper, it was a strategic purchase. But to Malik, it was something deeper, poetic justice wrapped in a business deal. Now, standing once again in that gleaming lobby, he heard the faint echo of his own footsteps. A memory surfaced, the sound of those same shoes, 2 years earlier, walking out after being humiliated. This time, every step was deliberate. He wasn't the kid begging to be heard anymore. "Mr. Johnson," the receptionist's voice brought him back. "They're ready for you in the conference room." He nodded and walked toward the same set of glass doors he'd been forced to leave through last time. The irony wasn't lost on him. As he entered, a dozen heads turned. The executives who had once mocked him now sat in tense silence. The CEO, Wallace, was among them, his posture stiff, his expression unreadable. "Good morning," Malik said evenly. "I trust you've all been informed of the recent ownership transition." A few nervous nods. Someone cleared their throat. Wallace, ever the performer, tried to muster confidence. "Mr. Johnson," he began, forcing a smile. "This is quite unexpected. I must say, we didn't see this coming." "I imagine not," Malik replied. He took a seat at the head of the table, his table now, and opened his briefcase. But that's what happens when a company refuses to adapt. You stop seeing what's right in front of you. The silence that followed was thick. A few of the board members exchanged uneasy glances. Malik could see the discomfort in their eyes, not just because of who he was, but because deep down, they knew he'd been right all along. He leaned back, folding his hands. 2 years ago, I stood in this very room and shared an idea you dismissed as foolish. You called it trendy, naive, remember? Wallace's face twitched. We might have been short-sighted. Malik smiled faintly. That short-sightedness cost this company millions. But don't worry, I don't hold grudges. I believe in growth, in second chances. He clicked a button on the remote, and the projector came to life. The screen glowed with the first slide of his old presentation, Reinventing Engagement, the future starts now. Gasps rippled through the room. Malik let them sit in their discomfort before continuing. Let's pick up where we left off, he said. Because this time, I'm not asking for permission. And as the projector light flickered across their stunned faces, Malik felt something shift inside him. Not revenge. Not even triumph, but quiet satisfaction. He had come full circle, not to prove them wrong, but to prove himself right. The boy they'd thrown out had returned as a man who built an empire. And now, it was his turn to lead. The room was utterly still. The only sound came from the quiet hum of the projector, casting a pale blue glow across the polished table. Malik stood at the head, his posture calm but commanding, his fingers resting lightly on the remote. The slide behind him read in bold letters, Reinventing Engagement, the future starts now. The same title they had once laughed at. The same idea that had been thrown out with him. For a moment, no one spoke. The executives who once carried themselves like untouchable titans now shifted uncomfortably in their leather chairs. Some pretended to take notes. Others just stared, faces tight, expressions unreadable. Malik let the silence linger, stretching it until it became heavy. He wanted them to feel the weight of it, not as revenge, but as recognition. He clicked to the next slide, the one with his old projections, now side by side with real-world results from the companies that had adopted his model. As you can see, he began, voice calm, steady, the framework I proposed 2 years ago has since been implemented by over 40 brands across multiple sectors. Average engagement growth, 200%. Revenue increase, a combined total of $400 million in new profits. Gasps echoed quietly around the room. Malik didn't pause. What you dismissed as a viral fad became the core of a new marketing standard, one that rebuilt entire industries during the digital shift you refused to see. He turned his gaze to Wallace, who sat rigid in his seat, his jaw clenched. You called it reckless, Malik continued. Said I didn't understand brand integrity. But I understood something more important, people. Consumers don't want faceless corporations anymore. They want to believe in something. They want to feel connected. You all taught me that the hard way. Wallace tried to regain control of the room, forcing out a small laugh that didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Johnson, we all make mistakes in business. Perhaps you can appreciate that now. What matters is how we move forward. Malik smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Oh, I agree, and moving forward is exactly why I'm here. He closed the laptop and stood tall, walking slowly along the edge of the table. Every step echoed softly in the silence. I didn't buy this company to humiliate anyone. I bought it because Sterling and Company used to mean something. It used to lead, inspire, create. But somewhere along the way, you stopped innovating. You became comfortable, safe, predictable, and that's the fastest way to die in this business. He stopped behind one of the executives who had mocked him during his presentation 2 years earlier. The man's hands trembled slightly as he shuffled papers that didn't need shuffling. Malik rested his hand lightly on the chair. When I left this building, I told myself that I'd never let another room full of people decide what my worth was. And I haven't. But I'm offering you something you didn't offer me, a second chance. Heads turned up, eyes widening. Wallace frowned. A second chance. Yes, Malik said simply. I'm restructuring this company from the ground up. Those willing to embrace innovation will stay. Those who can't let go of the old ways, the arrogance, the complacency, will leave. I don't need followers, I need visionaries. He walked back to the projector, picked up the remote, and switched to the final slide, a photo of a group of young, diverse marketers collaborating around a whiteboard. Underneath, in clean text, it read, "The future belongs to those who listen." This, he said, pointing to the screen, is what leadership looks like now. Collaboration, inclusion, adaptability. If that makes anyone here uncomfortable, I understand. There are plenty of companies still living in the past. Perhaps you'll feel more at home with them. The room was silent again. Malik could feel the shift. The tension, the realization, the subtle flicker of fear and respect blending into something new. He'd taken control not by shouting or demanding obedience, but by standing in quiet confidence, showing them what they had missed. Wallace finally stood, his composure cracking just slightly. "I suppose congratulations are in order," he said, voice thin. "You've certainly proven your point." Malik met his eyes. "It was never about proving a point, Mr. Wallace. It was about proving that I could do what you said couldn't be done." He gathered his laptop, then paused, turning back to the board. "There's a saying I like. Success is the best response to doubt. 2 years ago, you doubted me. Today, I'm inviting you to help rebuild what you nearly destroyed. The decision is yours." With that, he clicked off the projector. The room was plunged into soft daylight, the morning sun spilling across the table, catching the dust in golden streaks. The executives sat frozen, absorbing the reality of what had just happened. Malik walked toward the door, his reflection flickering briefly across the glass wall. The same glass he'd walked past 2 years ago, a young man broken by rejection. Now, he was whole. As he reached for the handle, Wallace called after him, voice quieter now, almost uncertain. "Malik, what happens if we say yes?" Malik turned, a faint smile touching his lips. "Then we build something worth believing in." And with that, he left the room, not with the sound of humiliation, but with the echo of power reclaimed. The boy they'd dismissed had returned as a leader, and this time, the world would listen.